Sure.
Awesome. So yeah, got it recording. Yeah. So a big warm welcome to Ryan Bomberger, all the way from Virginia in the United States. It's so exciting to have you talking with us today for the March for Life New Zealand online. So I'd love if you could just introduce yourself to the New Zealand audience that's watching today and share a bit about who you are as the founder of the Radiance Foundation. You're also an author, and I know you have a wonderful podcast with your wife, Bethany. So I'd love if you could just introduce yourself and share a bit about your personal story.
Sure. My name is Ryan Bomberger, and I'm married to an awesome woman. Her name is Bethany Bomberger, and we both founded the Radiance Foundation about 13 years ago because we wanted to tackle really tough culture shaping issues. And so she is an educator and I was a creative director for about 13 years. We wanted to take on these issues and equip people to know how to address these issues. And of course, fundamentally, the most important issue is life, because without life, nothing else matters. And so I'm a little passionate, you could say, about the issue of life. I'm from a tiny little family of 15. I have 6 brothers and 6 sisters. 10 of us were adopted and loved like crazy. All of us were loved like crazy. And so having 2 parents whose faith really shaped their whole worldview and also led them to love those that the world would just throw away, like me, and 9 of my other siblings, they really just shattered that whole myth of the unwanted child. And so when you talk about the issue of abortion, I'm that part of the conversation that people inevitably get to, because they always ask the question, well, what about rape? I'm part of the answer to that. I'm that tangible example. I'm the 1% that's used 100% of the time to justify abortion. But my birth mom, despite the horror and the violence of rape, not only gave me the incredible gift of life, she gave me the incredible gift of adoption. So here I am, present day. I got an awesome wife, Bethany, who's, we're partners in this fight for justice. We have 4 amazing kiddos, 2 of whom were also adopted. So if someone ever asked me, well, why do you care about this? How can I not care about this? I was conceived in rape, but I was adopted and loved. Wow. And we all need to know that the circumstances of our conception never change the condition of our worth. So that's why my wife and I will fight for the most marginalized, the most vulnerable, and the most defenseless.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful and redemptive. So redemptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've watched a bit of your speaking, and I love how you talk about the term factivism. I was wondering if you could just unpack that a little bit. What's your idea around factivism?
Yeah, well, people have probably seen, actually around the world, not this past summer, but the summer of 2020, here we call it, the summer of BLM and Antifa, where you saw all kinds of activism. And this is the thing, when someone feels that something is unjust, I applaud them for wanting to fight for justice. However, we have to know the context. We have to know what is actually shaping the issue. And so many people just go out and they act without the facts. And we see the dangerous consequences of that, because when that happens, you just act out of emotion, there's a lot of destruction that happens. And here in the United States, we saw $2 billion worth of destruction in cities across this country because people acted without the facts. So I'm a factivist. We're emotional beings, we're human beings, but we have to, especially as pro-lifers, we fuse the emotional with the evidential. And so what we do through the Radiance Foundation as factivists is we bring context and clarity to these culture shifting issues. We shouldn't have an excuse for not knowing what's going on. It's not enough to just say, oh, well, there's an injustice or this is epidemic. We actually need to know the stats. We need to know some of the stories behind it all. And so that's why I'm a factivist. I want people to care about injustice, but I also want them to know why they're fighting.
That's so good. I think that's so important as well. And like you said, especially in the pro-life movement. And the best part about that is the facts are on our side.
Yes.
In the pro-life movement, and we can use that as our foundation. And so totally on board with your factivism. In New Zealand, we've had a pretty rough couple of years. In March 2020, the Abortion Legislation Act was passed here, and it is one of the most extreme anti-life abortion laws in New Zealand, in the world, globally. And I just wondered if you had a message of encouragement for Kiwi pro-lifers as we continue in the fight for life. And just, yeah, wanted to hear your thoughts on, especially from your perspective and what you've been fighting in the US. And yeah.
Yes, it's easy to get so discouraged when you see, so many different battlefronts. It feels like we're losing on this one, we're losing on that one. But the great thing is we're winning on some battlefronts, even when we feel like we're outnumbered. And I'll tell you this, first of all, sometimes just turn off social media, because social media amplifies the lie all the time. And so it feels like, wait a minute, there are even fewer of us, but actually there's so many more of us. I love, Kiwi pro-lifers, American pro-lifers, whatever it is. We're brothers and sisters in this fight. And I just want to give you an example. Just here in the States, if you think about slavery, you think of how discouraged abolitionists were. They tried over and over again. They tried all kinds of laws that were considered, these incremental laws. We're gonna inspect slave ships. And people thought, how is that going to get rid of slavery? But they had to get those wins wherever they could get them. And for us, and as a Christian, I fully believe, we have to constantly go to prayer in all this. That's our first resort. That's our last resort. And while we're doing that, we keep hoping, and we keep fighting, peacefully fighting for the end of this injustice. I'll tell you what, it took years and years. You're talking over a century for the injustice, the inhumanity of chattel slavery to be abolished. But thank God, I mean, I don't know if you can notice, but I'm just a little brown. I thank God that abolitionists didn't give up. I mean, there were decades and decades where they felt like, these pro-slavery politicians, they're the ones in control. But guess what? Things change and the tide changes. And so I just want to encourage you, Kiwi pro-lifers, never give up. What is right now won't be tomorrow.
That is so right. I completely agree. The tides are changing here in New Zealand, and we're going to fight harder than we have the last 50+ years. So watch this space.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for speaking to us. We just really want to encourage you in your ministry, you and Bethany's ministry in the US and globally. We know you're having a massive impact, especially sharing your powerful story. And probably most importantly, raising your 4 wonderful children. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for fighting for God-given purpose that is in every single life from the moment of conception onward. God bless you guys. Keep fighting.